May is Mental Health Awareness Month, a time to encourage open conversations and reduce the stigma surrounding mental illness. A new book titled Why Me? The Brain on Tilt. It explores mental health through a medical and science-based lens while sharing hopeful stories of treatment, support, and recovery. So joining me now is local psychiatrist and author Dr. David Arthur Kent, that is. Can't leave the doctor off on that one, you earned it. All right, so let's talk about your book's focus, especially on the idea that mental health is an illness. It's a medical condition, not a personal weakness. Why is this messaging so important, especially as we enter into Mental Health Awareness Month?
Well, I just think there's a lot of misunderstanding about mental illness. There's a lot of misinformation, especially in this day and age. That's what prompted me to write a book, because I felt like there was a huge void.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create better awareness, and that's why it's perfect for this month. And it is, in general, mostly medically based illnesses that I treat with medical types of treatment. So that's kind of the central message, is that it's medical, not a weakness or a flaw or something you did wrong along the way.
Yes, I love your last statement. It's not something you did wrong along the way, right? Like this is some people have high blood pressure, right? Some people have other physical ailments. This is a physical ailment, but of the brain, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so your book covers conditions like depression, OCD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. What are some of the most, would you say, the largest misconceptions that you think people still might have about these types of conditions?
I think number one is they don't think that they're very treatable, or they're almost like a death sentence. And so I think that's a hindrance to people seeking help in the first place.
Yeah.
The length of time between the onset of symptoms and actually getting treatment is on the average is 6 to 8 years.
Oh, 6 to 8 years?
That's the average.
That somebody is struggling with
these conditions before they seek help.
Okay.
And we know in all of medicine that early intervention is better than later intervention.
Yes.
The sooner we get help, the better. And so that's a problem.
Okay. Yes, it is. And you're mentioning that, you know, this is a condition. Some people might think, oh, this is it. That's not going to get better. This is just something that I'm going to feel like this and be in this space for the rest of my life. But you're saying otherwise, right? There is recovery. What does that look like then?
I think it looks different for different conditions. For depression,
Yeah.
it can be a total recovery sometimes, and often can be. Bipolar, it's a type of near full recovery with the proper treatment. You still have to stay in treatment. It's not a cure. Schizophrenia is a different level of recovery. It's not a full recovery because there's some ongoing chronic symptoms that we can't treat very well, but there are ones we can. So it's sort of a modified recovery, but still a type of recovery. OCD is similar. We can often get full recovery in OCD, but sometimes it's a partial recovery where people can function better.
Yes.
So it varies.
Yeah, but there's hope.
There's definitely hope.
And there's movement forward.
Correct.
You're not stuck.
Exactly.
I think is the important message here, right? So if you are struggling, regardless of your condition, there is always an opportunity for it to be better, right? Like where you sit is not the end all be all. There is hope out there. So as we talk about the important role that families play in treatment and support, is this a message that's important for them to kind of keep reminding the individual going through these struggles?
Yeah, in my book, I address that pretty directly.
Yeah.
Because words matter.
Yes,
and words
they do.
matter, especially from people that you care about and care about you, supposedly. We can use words that can be very detrimental, or we can shame or place judgment on somebody. And that's a barrier to getting treatment, because if you're being shamed about something, you're less likely to go get help. But if you have supportive words and loving words about, I just want you to be better, I want you to find help and get professional help, that's so much better than sort of like, well, it's your fault, or you did something wrong, or if you would just do this. And that keeps people from getting help because they feel like it's their fault.
Yeah. Or I could imagine too, if someone's in the middle of treatment and the supporting party maybe feels a little overwhelmed, or perhaps they might feel a little impatient, right? Understanding that being repetitive and just constantly being that positive voice and reassurance that there is improvement and that they are on the right path could probably go a very long way.
A very long way, because just the opposite is true as well.
Yeah.
Any sort of negativity, even a little bit, can stop people in their tracks from getting help. And I call it a fork in the road. Either you get help properly and aggressively, or you don't. And when you don't, you can go in a completely opposite direction.
Yeah.
And we call that a downward spiral.
And we want to avoid that.
We want to avoid that at all costs.
All right. So, doctor, where do people find your book?
I have a author website. It's called davidkentauthor.com.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Author.com right there at the bottom of the screen. There's the book, Why Me? The Brain on Tilt. We strongly encourage that you check it out, doctor. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Everyone else, stick around. We'll be right back.